The second episode of The Penguin has been released on Max, and Matt Reeves' The Batman crime saga continues in the direction it set. It was a fantastic second episode by director Craig Zobel, giving us the next step of Oz's plan as an inside man, featuring powerhouse performances from both Colin Farrell and Cristin Milioti. So in this explained analysis, I'm going to be giving you my breakdown of The Penguin episode 2, titled Inside Man, discussing full plot details, the ending, and much more. There will be spoilers in this video, so if you haven't watched the episode yet, then I would recommend checking it out before watching my analysis. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my future content surrounding the Penguin series, the Batman saga, and other upcoming DC projects, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like, rating, and subscribing to the channel. But without further ado, let's dive into my explained video for The Penguin episode 2. So in the second episode of The Penguin, we continue to witness the transformation of Colin Farrell's Oz Cobb as he strives to establish himself as a formidable kingpin in Gotham's criminal scene. Driven by relentless ambition, Oz is navigating treacherous waters, determined to expand his power and influence in a world that is growing ever more unstable in the wake of Carmine Falcone's demise in The Batman. In episode 1, he managed to escape death by shifting the blame for Alberto Falcone's murder onto the Maroni crime family. And now, as he navigates this treacherous landscape, he cultivates a new relationship with the Maronis while maintaining his facade of loyalty to the Falcones. Episode 2 begins with Sofia navigating the corridors of Arkham, eventually reuniting with her brother Alberto. Her excitement quickly turns to horror though when she notices that his pinky finger is missing. Alberto assures her that he has a plan to get her out of Arkham, and soon after, someone shoots him from behind, leaving Sofia distraught. But as expected, it's then revealed that this is just a nightmare plaguing Sofia during her intriguing session with a psychiatrist named Julian Rush. He gently reassures her that she is no longer in Arkham, but she insists that she doesn't feel safe. During their meeting, Rush holds Sofia tightly, and there's even a moment when it looks like they might kiss before she leaves. So it definitely could be suggesting some expanded love between them that we are yet to explore further. On top of this though, the introduction of this character seems weirdly similar to Scarecrow, a doctor named Jonathan Crane that experimented on inmates from Arkham using fear toxin. Now, this might not be referencing Scarecrow at all, but it does make me think of how they previously changed the names of Riddler and Penguin. So who knows, maybe this is our first introduction to this universe's Scarecrow. We'll have to see if it goes anywhere, but it's definitely an interesting scene nonetheless. But moving on, we come back to Oz, who has paid a visit to Salvatore Maroni and others at Blackgate, including Maroni's wife Nadia. Sal is clearly agitated with Oz, accusing the Penguin of blame for Alberto's murder. Oz dismisses this, arguing that the murder has actually revitalized the Maroni family's name. He points out that Alberto's death has left them vulnerable and reveals that he has insider information about the new head of the family, which is Luca Falcone, Carmine Falcone's brother. With some persuading by Nadia, Salvatore Maroni ultimately agrees to Oz's proposal, but insists that he must keep his word and provide them with their drops. So Oz updates them about the Falcones' ongoing plan to shift their drop operations to Robbinsville, highlighting that the shipment will be at risk. This creates an opportunity for the Maronis to intercept their cargo, and so Oz advises them to target a FEMA truck. However, things take a turn when Falcone's underboss Johnny Vitti instructs Oz to ride in that truck during transport. So when the Maronis do arrive, Oz has to react quickly and avoid being shot. He does manage to escape this situation, and the Maronis successfully seize the drops they were after. Back at the Falcone estate, Sofia walks in on Oz and Vitti locked in a heated argument about this particular attack. Sofia confronts Vitti, insisting that their focus shouldn't be on the stolen money or products, but rather on the fact that their reputation has been jolted. She raises the idea to him that there might be a traitor within their operations, someone who has been leaking information to the Maronis. So in turn, Carmine's brother Luca insists that they need to bolster security around their operations. But he then pulls Sofia aside for a private conversation, explaining that as the new head of the family, it's his responsibility to uncover any traitors if there are any at all. Oz listened into all this and offers to help Sofia track down the rat. However, Sofia turns down his offer, comparing him to Viti and Luca and firmly stating that she owes him or them nothing. Later on, as Oz waddles down the street with Victor, the latter pauses to examine a missing persons poster. Now, I'm guessing this is to do with his backstory, and I think we'll be learning more about that in the upcoming episodes. Anyway, Oz nudges Victor to stay focused, explaining that his only way forward is to act as an inside man for Sofia Falcone. He then recounts to him how he initially got entangled with the Falcone family, starting as a driver for one of their associates, who ultimately met a grim fate at the hands of Carmine for cooperating with the authorities. And just as Oz finishes telling him that story, Eve and her group of sex workers arrive at his place. After Victor stands awkwardly on the sidelines, ignoring a worried message from a girl named Graciela, Oz introduces him to Roxy, one of Eve's co-workers. When Victor mentions he hails from Crown Point, Roxy shares that her cousin lost everything there in the floods. So it's definitely tied into those circumstances at the end of the Batman, and again, it looks like we will be learning about Vic's backstory in the upcoming episodes. Meanwhile, Oz examines the blackmail photos he stole at the beginning of episode 1 within his bedroom. These are the ones that show Johnny Viti with an unidentified woman in bed, somewhat telling us that his plan is going to revolve around him. Eve walks in while he's observing these, and she reveals to him that she knows that he killed Alberto. She worries that he's endangering her by using her as his alibi, but Oz reassures her that he intends to leverage the photos he has to make the underboss take the blame. The next morning, Oz pays a visit to his mother Frances, only to learn from her landlord that she has been found wandering the streets, insisting that she was late for mass. The landlord suggests that it might be time for Frances to move into a nursing home because of her dementia, but Oz manages to persuade him with a bribe, urging him to keep a watch over her. In an effort to calm her down, Oz then dances with Frances, and she tells him that if he becomes nothing, then what is she? So while clearly ill, she is still pushing him to take what should be his. And after this brief but meaningful conversation, Victor gently reminds Oz that Alberto's funeral has already started, and so they leave to reach the church on time. However, before the funeral, we get some scenes with Sofia learning a bit more about her time in Arkham and her plan going forward. On the radio, a report reveals her dark past, detailing how she took the lives of 7 women while masquerading as the Hangman. And once she later arrives at a bar, she stops for a chat with a bent detective known as Marcus Wise, asking for his help in uncovering a traitor within the family. Although he expresses doubt about his ability to carry this out, Sofia sweetens the deal by giving him drops to take and cash. This leads us into the funeral, where Oz arrives late, and a crowd of protesters demand Sofia to return to Arkham. Once arriving, Oz tries to hand Luca the photos of Viti, but Luca dismisses him. So spotting Sofia alone, he then approaches her. She mentions not seeing him at the funeral, and he lies, claiming he was at the back of the procession. Oz then shares with her that he didn't have much growing up, and his mother never held a funeral for his brothers. Instead, she took him to a jazz club, and they danced in memory of them. Castillo, Sofia's bodyguard, interrupts this though, and tells Sofia that their new detective has uncovered information about a potential informant. Back at the Falcone estate, the detective discloses that he has abducted one of the Moroni associates from the hospital where he was recovering from the attack at the beginning of this episode. Sofia instructs her man to secure this potential informant in the basement and to notify her once he wakes up. Meanwhile, Oz was called to a quick meeting with Nadia, who confronts him about one of their men being missing. Although Nadia suspects Luca may be behind the abduction, Oz argues that Sofia is acting on it. And just as Nadia is about to kill Oz, he presents the stolen photos of Viti, revealing that the woman he's been sleeping with in the pictures is actually Luca's wife. So Nadia insists that Oz must locate and retrieve the kidnapped Moroni associate, as he might expose Oz's undercover involvement with them. Oz and Victor make their way to the Falcone estate for Alberto's wake, and once there, Oz instructs Vic to find VT's car and carefully hide the stolen jewels there. This move would position the underboss as the informant. While tasking him with this, Oz starts his search for the Maroni associate. As he wanders through the mansion, Oz spots Castillo keeping an eye on the basement, so he approaches VT and Falcone's bodyguard and claims that he knows they are hiding this man in the basement. To even further stir the pot, he says that they should have trusted him to keep an eye on the Maroni man rather than relying on one of Sofia's goons. Speaking of Sofia, she arrives at the wake to find everyone whispering about her and looking at her with fear, including her own cousin Isabella and her young daughter. Of course, this reaction to her arrival will only make her become more intimidating and less trusting of those closest to her. While all this goes on inside, Victor is caught outside breaking into VT's car, and instead of seeing him place the jewels there, the guards think that he's actually trying to steal them. He narrowly escapes this situation and rings Oz to tell him that he failed. Oz though is lucky because he gets an opportunity to escape this mess up. He gets some time alone in the basement with Maroni's man, and he initially demands that the man inform Sofia that VT was responsible for the death of Alberto. But because Victor had rung him to say that he failed on his end, Oz realizes that he has no choice but to kill Maroni's man in order to have any chance of being let off. So he stabs him just before Sofia and her men come into the basement. Once they find the body, Luca insists that everyone involved in the transport of the drops gather upstairs so that they can find out who the rat really was. Oz is included in this search and realizes that he has to get rid of his pocket knife that he used to kill Maroni's associate. With little to no time to do so, he accuses VT of murdering Alberto and discreetly slips the knife he used to kill Maroni's man into Castillo's pocket. Luca then shoots Castillo on the spot, and Sofia is angered by this, asserting that it was her right to kill him. Luca responds by telling her that she must leave Gotham for Italy to ensure her safety, and talks to her as if she has no power over what their crime family should do next. This brings us to the ending of episode 2, and we get quite a tense moment between Oz and Vic. Oz is assigned the grim duty of burying the bodies of Maroni's associate and Castillo. And just as Victor thinks he can take a breather, Oz forcefully pushes him back into the grave alongside the corpses and criticizes him for his failures during their operation. Victor's blunder almost cost Oz his life, and after a fierce warning about burying him alongside the dead men, Oz ultimately opts to grant him another opportunity. Among all the deceit and hidden alliances, Victor appears to be the only person Penguin feels he can genuinely rely on. It's quite probable that Penguin relishes having him by his side, but I think it's also the case that he likes having a sense of control over him. We'll have to see how their relationship develops, and it'll be interesting to learn more about Vic's backstory in the episodes ahead. But after his intense encounter with Victor, Oz gets a call from Sofia instructing him to meet her at the Falcone family tomb where Alberto rests beside his father. Upon arrival, Sofia unveils her ambitious scheme to seize control of the family business, a plan she is now prepared to kill for. The episode wraps up with Sofia asking Oz if he wants to join her, to which Oz responds, "Let's dance." So as Carmine's daughter, Sofia believes she deserves the leadership position as part of her inheritance, a sentiment that has intensified following Alberto's demise. Moreover, her time in Arkham has left her with a deep-seated resentment towards the family. This feeling is compounded by her exoneration, hinting at a more complex backstory behind her past as the Hangman. By the end of episode 2, it's evident that Sofia will not passively accept Luca's efforts to push her out of Gotham. Sofia had previously pointed the finger at Penguin for Alberto's murder, but she realizes that her support system is decreasing and the challenges ahead will be formidable. So for the time being, she appears to be placing trust in Penguin. And in doing so, of course we know that she's underestimating him and his methods of manipulation. But that was my breakdown and analysis for The Penguin episode 2. Overall, this was another excellent episode for the Max show, one that gets more into the complexity of the arising gang war between the Falcones and the Maronis, and one that effectively shows how Penguin is pulling the strings from the inside. Not just that, but it teases further character details and backstories for Oz, Sofia, and Victor. Originally, I was worried about how Matt Reeves' Gotham would translate onto the small screen, but just in these opening 2 episodes, they've completely sold me on the direction being taken. A lot of this is down to Craig Zobel's direction, working from Matt Reeves' well-developed story, and it's brought to life authentically by the central performances of Farrell and Milioti. It's really playing into that greater infusion of a gangster story in comparison to the detective-driven influences of the film. Seeing Gotham City at street level and going deep inside the crime families involved gives the show great setup for whenever anything violent does kick off. I can't wait to see more from the show, and I think if it continues to be this good, we might have one of the best, if not the best, comic book series of all time. But I do hope this breakdown did help some of you guys understand the episode and the main details a bit better, and overall, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, so don't forget to let me know down below in the comment section. Also, stay tuned for my episode 3 trailer breakdown tomorrow, and more content every week on the new Batman series. For much more videos and news on the Batman universe and DC, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.